Hi, welcome. Today we're going to be working with a little bit non-traditional material. For snowflakes, we're going to actually be using some napkins. I decided to try to do a plaid truck. I know they were really popular last year and you see them a lot in stores, so I thought, we'll try it. We'll see if it works or not. If it doesn't, that's okay. It's always fun to experiment with new things. It's kind of one of those things about creating. Sometimes the idea is fun, and just the thought of experimenting is kind of the fun thing. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm always encouraging my students to try new things, so I also have to be willing to try. If you want to just do this on plain paper, I am providing the box folding template, but I'm also just going to be working it today with the napkins, just with this full-size pattern. Okay, gonna go ahead and, as you know, the napkins are already folded into fours, and they also are not flat. I did think about ironing, and I did actually try to iron, but they are also not really made to be flat. So even with ironing, they're not straight, they're not flat. So we're not going to worry about that at all. This is the point that we're going to be folding into thirds. So if you take a look at it, this is the side that has the two folds. This side has 4 layers that are just here in the one fold. So we're going to be treating this a little differently today. Of course, it's a new material, so we're going to be patient with ourselves and give ourselves a couple of tries here. And again, anytime you're using a new material, it takes a little while to get used to it, or a new tool. We are definitely not expecting this to be flat. I'm going to need a couple tries here, I think. Maybe it's just extra thick there. It feels a little bit off. Let's try this. See how close we ended up. It feels a little strange. Are we? No, we need to fix that just a little bit. I suppose I could. Sometimes I'm a little bit too much of a perfectionist. But, like I tell you, don't be paralyzed by perfection. We've got to keep trying. Sometimes when we're experimenting especially, we've got to let go and see what happens, so we can try things out for the first time and see whether or not we want to keep putting more effort into it. Okay, it is kind of hard to see where we are. I actually made it a little worse. We're going to go back to where we were here. Go ahead and fold over that again. I think we're really close, so we're going to go with it. It is quite thick. It is 12 layers. I'm hoping it's going to cut nicely. That's the other thing, that we'll see how well it cuts. I'm hoping it's not going to tear. I'm assuming that the paper punch with this would be a little bit tricky, because I'm assuming it would tear a little bit, and I'm going to be really careful with my paper clips, just because I'm guessing that it's going to catch on the napkin, just the way it's a little fuzzier almost. I don't know how to explain it exactly. You know how napkins are. So they're meant to be absorbent. They're not really meant to be slick. So we're going to try this. And you can see I actually have way more space than I need for the 8.5 inch. I could go quite a ways up. Looks like I could go even up to here. So you've got quite a ways to work with for making snowflakes, so that's nice. do have quite a bit of space up here. Like I said, I'm being a little cautious because I don't want to snag and rip the napkin. Okay, so I haven't drawn a red line on this pattern yet, but you can see here the access cut. I'm hoping you can see the access cut right here that I used to get up to the window, and it's kind of where the door would be naturally, so it kind of fits in perfectly for the truck. So we're just going to go ahead and go through that access cut and use it to cut out the window. Okay, and then once we have that part cut out, it's a fairly simple design really. We're just going to go ahead and finish cutting out the wheels. I'm going to make sure that I've got the pieces together here. Hopefully that's not going to be in my way too much as I'm cutting. Remember, use your tools to help you. If they get in your way, then feel free to change. I'm going to actually cut into a point here to get around that wheel and make sure I get a good cut. Definitely want to make sure that I don't tear that napkin there. Make sure I got through all my layers. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead. It's a little bit gummy as I feel like I'm gumming through the material here as I'm cutting through the napkin. It's a little bit different feel for sure. It's to be expected since it's different. Make sure that I'm getting a good, nice cut. Of course, if you weren't using a pattern, I think it would be a little bit easier. You'd have a little bit just a little bit more freedom of movement, I guess you would call it. You wouldn't be worried about being so precise, and you could kind of just go with the material. So keep that in mind if you do decide you want to try with napkins. You don't necessarily have to have a pattern on top, and that might make it a little easier. But, you know, kids are bored at an event. And you don't necessarily have a lot to work with, but this is something that they could do. Not that I'm suggesting kids get bored at weddings or anything, but I have been to wedding receptions where the kids are really struggling. So, I mean, if this keeps them quiet in a corner, it might be a little messy, but a lot of times you do have 1,000,001 extra napkins, so something to consider. Sorry to the brides and grooms out there who might end up with a mess in the corner at your wedding, but consider that maybe it's better than having kids screaming and running through the cultural hall or through the wedding hall, the banquet hall. Whatever your choice of venue. Maybe they can throw snowflakes at you at the end instead of rice. It might be a little less painful. Just depends on how kindly your relatives throw, I guess. Okay. That one might be an interesting 2-in-1. I think I'm just going to leave it open as is just to see how it turns out. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut out this wheel first just because This will be the more interesting shape here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn here. Maybe I won't make it that difficult for myself. I was thinking maybe I would show you what the outer 2-in-1 could be, but since this is a new material, I think maybe I'm not going to make it quite that difficult on myself. Sometimes I try a little too hard for you guys. All right, here we go. Go ahead and finish cutting out this truck. I gotta make sure I keep that. It did kind of slide around here a little bit, so I gotta make sure I keep that fold. Might not have made that quite as rounded as I wanted. Okay, let's see, what part should we open up first here? Let's see, we'll open up the center like we normally do. I'll try not to torture you too much here, but I'm curious to see how it turned out too. And again, not going for perfectly flat here. We knew that this material was not going to be perfectly flat. We knew that there were wrinkles. We kind of accepted that as part of this material, that was going to be slightly flawed, and we're okay with that. So here we go. You can see that the back, this is kind of a lined napkin. Oh, and it's actually coming apart. How interesting. So I guess you could have two. I'm not sure how hard it would be to pull that apart. And I'm actually going to torture you a little more here. We're going to go ahead and open this outside one. I'm just curious to see how this one turned out. Definitely have space for an outer 2-in-1. It's kind of interesting. Definitely could work with that extra space. All right, I'm moving that out of the way. Sorry, I was curious. All right, now we'll see how this actual snowflake, the part that we were actually working on, turned out. You can see we definitely had room. We could make it bigger. Definitely increase the size to fit the napkin. It could be bigger than the 8.5. I'll have to go back in and measure, I guess, and see how big. I guess I shouldn't have unfolded that. We'll have to go back and measure and see if we could increase it even up to a 12-inch size to be able to work it on that napkin. So that might be even better. All right. A little bit trickier here as we're working on details. We do have the extra layer. The extra layer is making it a little tricky for me to pull everything apart cleanly here. Again, make sure that once you're to this stage, you don't get impatient and end up ripping your snowflake because you're eager to see what it looks like. It is really sticking together more than I expected, so this might be the hardest part if you're having children help. I guess it depends on how many details you decide to put in. A little bumper right there almost got torn off. I guess that could just add some character to the truck, because what farm truck isn't missing part of its bumper or has a dinged up bumper? Wow, yeah, this is the unfolding is definitely trickier than I had anticipated, but good to know. Good to know when you're working with different materials what you're going to be up against. All right, almost there, guys. Halfway there. All right. And it's probably partly because it's meant to be absorbent that it's catching and sticking on the other layers. I mean, that does make sense, right? That it's meant to have those fibers that kind of catch things. It's kind of its job normally to catch things as you're using it to wipe off a table or wipe your face. All right. Much trickier than anticipated, so sorry, guys. All right, working on our patience. Yep, this is real life, guys. We don't fake this. I'd rather have you guys see how it really is than have me pretend it was so easy. All right. There's the white side, and of course with all its little wrinkles, but again, we knew that was going to happen. And there's our other side. All right, that was a fun little experiment, and I hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you for watching.